And now on NDTV, for the first time on television since the Flight 171 tragedy, we have someone who has not only flown the 787 aircraft, but actually flew 787 aircraft for Air India itself until as recently as last year. Captain Rakesh Rai is with us on this special broadcast. We've got a lot of questions and area to cover, but I want to emphasize this once again, that Captain Rakesh Rai, standing here on this broadcast, flew the exact kind of aircraft for the same airline until last year. And there couldn't be a better person to help us navigate the difficult unanswered questions of what happened to Flight 171. I'm going to start straight off with you, Captain Rai, with those two videos of the crash that have come out. These are the only two videos that have come out so far in public. You have flown the exact same kind of aircraft with the same airline, Air India. What did you make of these two videos? What do they tell you, sir?
Namaskar and Jai Hind. Basically, the video indicates that the takeoff was a very normal takeoff. Nothing unusual about the takeoff.
Nothing abnormal.
Nothing abnormal about the takeoff. His rate of rotation and the way he has climbed up is very normal. But something has gone wrong towards maybe an altitude of 400 to 500 feet, and the momentum has taken the aircraft to about 600.
At this point?
At this point,
yeah.
The most surprising aspect of this takeoff is that the undercarriage has not been retracted. What happens in a normal takeoff is that the moment you start rotating the aircraft for takeoff and the aircraft has left the ground, the instruments indicate a positive rate of climb.
Right.
So the co-pilot or the pilot monitoring gives a call, positive rate. The pilot flying cross-checks that there has been a positive rate, and he gives a call, gear up.
Yeah, for the landing gear to be retracted.
Yeah. That is for the purpose of performance of the aeroplane. All this happens within a height of, say, about 50 to 100 feet.
Right.
This procedure
literally seconds after liftoff.
Yes, this procedure is completed. But here what you see, the undercarriage has not been retracted at all.
Yeah. Now, much clearer in the first video. Yeah.
So that raises a lot of questions as to what could be the reason behind the undercarriage not being retracted.
What does it tell you? Specific.
You see, we can only speculate. The actual reason behind that will come out only in the DFDR.
Yes.
One could be that a bird hit has taken place. Both the pilots have been taken aback.
But that has apparently been ruled out, is what we're hearing. Yeah.
Okay. So, but I'm just giving you the reason. So, but a bird hit has happened. Both the pilots have been taken aback by what has happened. And in the process, they have forgotten to raise the undercarriage. The second thing could be that there has been a sudden loss of power and it has distracted everyone so much that in the process the gear has not been raised. And the third very unlikely scenario is that when the captain said gear up, the first officer or the co-pilot, instead of raising the gear, has retracted the flaps.
Flaps, yeah.
Retraction of flaps will result in immediate loss of lift.
Yes.
And with the gear down, the thrust will not be able to cope up with the drag being created. So the aircraft will not be able to climb. So these could be a few of the scenarios, but it will be very wrong on my part to say that, okay.
No, I understand. And I want to put out this disclaimer that Captain Rai is someone who has literally flown the 787 for Air India, but this is only in the realm of discussion. The truth will only come out after an investigation. And the black box has just been retrieved as well. So that investigation has begun. My second question to you, Captain Rai, is, sitting in the cockpit, and you know what it's like sitting in that 787 cockpit. If an error of this kind, theoretically, we are not saying any errors have been made, but if an error like, retracting the flaps instead of the landing gear happened, wouldn't the flight control computer or, the safety features on the aircraft disallow something like that because it is programmed to keep the aircraft in that lift-off configuration?
See, there is a flight protection available, but that is only in the cruise at high speeds for inadvertent deployment of flaps. But for retraction of flaps, There is no such thing. There are only gates.
That's very important.
There are only gates available. Say you are at flaps 5 and you want to go to flaps 1, flaps up, then at flaps 1 position there is a gate. So the movement has to be a deliberate movement to cross that gate and go to flaps 1. That is the only protection provided.
Captain Rai, you know, a lot of debate. People seem to diverge on whether this very grainy set of images from these two crash videos suggests that the flaps were retracted or extended. Are you able to tell from these pictures whether they are extended or retracted?
See, I personally went onto the YouTube and took a screenshot and zoomed it. It's not possible.
You can't tell.
You can't tell. No
okay.
way.
So let's leave that aside for the moment. What can you tell us about the engines from these two videos? Because bird hit has been ruled out according to every expert we've spoken to about this. But there is obviously a catastrophic drop in thrust and lift where the aircraft, instead of continuing to climb, the 787, which you have flown and you've been in this exact situation, suddenly levels out and then falls.
See,
if what could have happened to the engines?
If there is a loss of thrust, even partial loss of thrust, because of various reasons, could be a software glitch, could be a kind of a stall for some reason. This partial loss of thrust also can result into catastrophic situation because the gear is down. That's very important. The gear down is actually acting like a speed brake.
Right.
It's not allowing speed to build up. And if the speed is not building up, the lift is not there.
Yeah.
And if the lift is not there, aircraft will continue sinking.
In fact, I want to draw your attention to these two images.
Yeah.
This says retracted, but that doesn't appear to be the case. At least we cannot say so definitely. This is what a 787, which you have flown, looks like when the flaps are extended in a takeoff configuration.
Correct.
This is the ill-fated 787 of Air India that crashed in Ahmedabad. But you cannot tell here whether they are extended or retracted.
No way. It's so grainy.
It's too grainy.
Very difficult. And because of the attitude of the aeroplane, it's about 15 degrees nose up, you see more of the wing area. So it's difficult to ascertain whether the flaps are down or not. If the aircraft was in this attitude, you could make out that the flaps are down. But if it's a 15 degrees up attitude,
you can see the entire surface area of the wing.
You can see the planform of the wing. So it's difficult to analyze whether the flaps are down or not.
Now I want to come to the engines themselves. Let's go back to the crash videos. People have been talking about how it's possible that one engine had failed, and this was flying on a single engine, and maybe the second engine was also erroneously shut down. But then you can hear the sounds of the engine, especially in that first video. What are your views on that? What are the engine protocols, sir?
See, if an engine fails, there are memory items to be carried out. And if there is a severe damage to the engine, one of the memory items is to shut down that engine. Fuel control switch cut off. That is one of the actions. There is a possibility that instead of switching off the dead engine, somebody switches off the live engine.
By mistake?
By mistake, it can happen. So then both engines have failed and the height is not sufficient to relight and go ahead. I'm not saying that is the scenario here, but that's a possibility.
No, but we trust your words because you've been in that seat.
That's a possibility that this can happen, that the wrong engine has been switched off. If the wrong engine has been switched off, there is no time available at that altitude to recover.
It's just too low.
It's just too low. There is no sufficient. Now, the first question, first scenario when we talked about that the flaps have been retracted inadvertently, if the aeroplane had sufficient height, maybe 1,000 feet, the flaps can again be selected and a situation recovered.
So this was this then a case of simply not having enough time? Let us assume for a moment that some errors may have been made. We're not saying that definitively, but let us assume for a moment that some errors were made. Is it a question of the 787 pilots simply not having time to correct what may have happened or respond to the emergency?
See, the takeoff roll itself, with that kind of heavy weight and that kind of high temperature in Ahmedabad, would have taken about between 20 to 30 seconds. The whole crash has happened from the wheels roll up to 59 seconds. So if the aircraft gets airborne around 30 seconds, the pilot has precisely 25 seconds to react.
In fact, we counted the amount of time from the moment the aircraft lifts off till impact. up to roughly 32 seconds, sir.
So-
32 seconds, half a minute.
So that's all.
Yeah.
Half a minute is very less time to react. And that also, one has to keep in mind, it will take about 3 to 4 seconds for the pilot to understand what
Yeah.
has happened. So that time also you need to reduce from that 25 seconds. So it becomes just about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
In 20 seconds to react and recover the situation, extremely difficult. And one has to understand this. Speed was 170 knots, that's 320 kilometers per hour. Aircraft is moving fast for any ground transport thing. A lot of ground is being covered in that much of speed. So 20 seconds for anybody to react and recover the situation with gear down, very difficult.
No, it is at the same time terrifying, as well as one is filled with admiration for pilots, and bless their souls, sir, as we talk about the departed and all of these people, including the brave crew of this aircraft. At what point in this, we're saying 825 feet because that's what came on some of the flight mapping software, but as you said, the altitude may have been far less, maybe about 300, 400, 500 feet.
625 feet.
625 feet, okay, about 200 feet less than we're saying. At what point would that Mayday call have gone out, sir? At that time when the aircraft is sort of leveling out and starting to descend?
It could have been at the time when the pilot realized whatever wrong has happened. Whatever wrong has happened.
Yeah.
When the aircraft was unable to gain further height and it has started going down, that is the time the call must have been given. Because then the aircraft is out of control.
Yeah.
He is not able to control the aeroplane. So he has given a call, Mayday. But after that, for anybody to help him or for anybody else
Which
to
is why they probably didn't respond when the air traffic
Absolutely,
control
because
called
he must
back.
have been busy handling the aeroplane.
Yeah, yeah.
He must have been busy handling the aeroplane. And you can see the attitude of the aeroplane increasing, because it's a natural instinct when the ground is rushing towards you.
To pull away from it.
You pull away from it, trying to save yourself. Some people have also said that he has seen the building, medical college building, and he has raised the attitude to avoid hitting that. I don't think he would have seen the building because the altitude is so high.
Yeah.
The building would have been under his nose.
Correct.
So there is no way he can see the building.
Away from his field of vision.
Away from his field of vision.
It's, 32 seconds is such a, it's less than a minute, it's half a minute, and one is hard pressed to understand how many decisions the pilots would have had to take in that very limited time.
Between me and you in 32 seconds, how much of discussion can we have?
Exactly.
The co-pilot is sitting this side, he is flying, handling the emergency and consulting the co-pilot what needs to be done. There's no time.
Yeah.
There's no time.
In your training, Captain Rai, 787 training, and right now as we talk about this aircraft, and we've got pictures of the aircraft itself before this terrible tragedy, which photographers around the world have taken pictures of that, the VT A and B. I wonder if you have maybe flown this aircraft.
I've flown this airplane.
You have flown this aircraft. Okay, let's put pictures of that aircraft on our screen. We've got images that have been captured in various air shows, in various airports around the country of this particular aircraft that you have flown yourself.
I've flown Dreamliner for 12 years.
And this particular airframe also you've flown?
Definitely.
You've flown this aircraft as well.
Definitely.
Okay. While we wait, there you have it. This is the aircraft, and you're saying there's definitely something that you have flown. And we've collated some of these images. So before I move to my next question, I just wanted to wonder how you felt when you heard about this. I mean, because we do understand that there is a man-machine connection. You do feel a connection to the aircraft that you fly.
Absolutely.
You're not flying the same aircraft every time, but you're actually telling us here on NDTV that you've flown this very aircraft.
I must have flown it many times.
Yeah.
See, this aeroplane is technologically the most advanced passenger aeroplane in the world.
Yeah.
It's very sophisticated. When you fly this aeroplane, even with 42 years of flying experience, I used to watch how the aeroplane does things. It was like magic.
Yeah.
It was like space-age technology. Beautiful aeroplane, amazing aeroplane to fly. And because of that, you start loving the aeroplane, the man-machine thing. And on top of that, Sumit Sabharwal is a very good friend.
Yeah.
I've flown with him many times. Very nice person, very soft-spoken, very down-to-earth person. Losing a close friend, losing a beautiful machine, and of course losing so many passengers is very heartbreaking.
In your training on 787s, Captain Rai, are you trained to respond and given a checklist of things you can do in such situations? Because from my understanding in pilot training, even the most extreme situations are catered for and trained for on simulators and things like that. Would something like this have figured in your training?
Absolutely. Let's first get on to the history of checklist.
Yeah.
The doctors in their operation theater, they also have a checklist. And their checklist is actually inspired by cockpit checklist. Not many people are aware of this. They have copied this, procedure from us.
Yeah. And just to be specific, we're talking about the actual crash, that kind of scenario. So we'll put that video back on the wall. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the simulator, at least twice a year, all of us are given emergencies. And simulator is like real life thing.
Yeah.
If you can fly the simulator, it's called a 0-hour simulator. It means if you can fly the simulator, you can straight sit in the aeroplane and fly the aeroplane. It is so realistic. So in the simulator, you can simulate any kind of emergency, any kind of weather condition, anything. So we are made to practice different kinds of emergencies.
Including this kind of emergency?
Absolutely.
And what is the standard operating procedure for something like this?
Like I told you, the gear down is the biggest thing in this whole crash. The gear was down, and that has most likely created most of the problem in the aeroplane. In the simulator, the standard operating procedure, like I said, positive rate gear up. And after that, everything happens. So in the simulator, we are given all kinds of emergencies, engine fire, engine failure, engine severe damage, and we take action accordingly. But training on 2 engine failing at the same time, I don't think it's being done, because that possibility is 1 in millions.
So this is rarest of the rare we're talking about potentially.
Potentially. If both the engines are failed, it's one of the rarest of the rare.
Yeah.
The only parallel to this was Sully.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he landed in Hudson, both engines failed because of a bird hit. But both engines failing at the same time is a very rare thing. Previous to that was the British Airways 747 when entered into volcanic ash when all 4 engines failed. So this is a very, very rare phenomena.
Yeah.
If it has happened.
Yeah. Captain Rai, the Boeing 787 is not a very old aircraft. It was introduced in 2011. There are over 1,000 flying right now. Air India is one of the largest operators. And as you described at the beginning, this is a high performance, beautiful, advanced aircraft.
Yep.
The pilots and crew were highly qualified, very experienced, flying personnel in the cockpit as well. The public will be wondering, the flying public will be wondering, such a sophisticated aircraft, such an amazingly experienced crew, a series of things must have gone catastrophically wrong for something like this to happen, because aviation safety is built on redundancies. If one thing fails, there will always be another thing to back it up like a safety net. So for something like this to happen, it must have been a terrible, perfect storm of, perhaps cascading failures.
It's always a chain of events.
Yeah.
In any kind of accidents, it's always a chain of events. A lot of things happen, one after another. So to say that air transportation is not safe is not correct.
Yeah.
There was a study, I was just reading about that a passenger, if he has to meet a fatal accident, he has to fly for 1,300,000 years continuously to meet with a fatal accident.
Yeah.
That's the probability. So
and the probability is obviously exponentially higher for a road accident or something
much
like that.
higher.
Yeah.
Much higher. I mean, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
So if people get scared because of these kind of accidents that air travel is not safe, is absolutely wrong. Air travel is one of the safest mode of transportation. People don't need to worry about it. This is one of a kind. It's just a fluke kind of a thing. It's not to be taken into consideration. You can fly safe and you can fly happy. There is no problem.
Final 2 questions, Captain Rai, as we come to a close on this, because, I don't want to over-speculate also, because now we are waiting on the findings from that black box. The Tata Sons chairman has also talked about how they are committed to total transparency once they have an understanding of what may have happened. But how crucial is this phase right now? You know, the crash site of where this happened has been mapped, the debris is being recovered. You know, we have images of the tail where the Prime Minister also visited today, which apparently contained that black box, has been recovered. This is that picture as well. What happens next, if you can tell us just a little bit, as far as the investigation is concerned?
See, the flight data recorder will be decoded. Depending upon what they find in the flight data recorder at what stage, if in the earlier stage itself they find something which is incriminating evidence, then they will come to some conclusion, this is what has happened. Otherwise, it can take as long as 5 to 6 months to finally come to a conclusion what exactly has happened. So it depends what kind of conversation the pilots have had. Based on that, they can find out what could have gone wrong. They can look at that part and see and come to a conclusion. So to say that it can the results can come out in 1 week or in 1 month or in 6 months is difficult.
Final question then. At this point of time, the 787, the aircraft, in these pictures, in this terrible accident, you've spent a portion of your career flying these amazing aircraft as well. There is a sense that there could be, depending on what the findings are, if they are very serious findings and are not just specific to this particular accident, which happens to be the first of the 787 type, then it could have a larger effect. There may be possible fleet groundings. It could have an international ramification as well. What is your hunch as a pilot? Do you think that's a possibility? Because it's important to emphasize this is the first accident of this aircraft since it was introduced in 2011.
See, I was a military pilot before this.
Yeah.
And even in the Air Force, if an accident took place, at times the whole fleet was grounded to carry out checks on each and every aeroplane. Similarly here, if any incident takes place, like the DGCA that we just heard on the news, that DGCA has come out with certain number of checks to be carried out. So those checks are mandatory checks to rule out certain possibilities. At the accident site, they may have noticed something because of which they want certain checks to be carried out. And if something concrete comes out, Boeing is, not averse to grounding the whole fleet and carry out all checks before the aeroplane gets airborne again.
Final question, Captain Rai, before I let you go, because this is valuable and it helps us really understand a view from the cockpit. You know, we use that phrase loosely, but yours really is a view from the cockpit. So I will end by asking you this. You know, we hear about flights, we hear about, aviation in general, largely when it is bad news. And I'm talking about in this context, accidents or collisions or, a ground incident at an airport. There must be an entire world of emergencies in the air that are never reported. Where pilots are really earning their training and doing what they've been trained to do to get out of sticky situations which never sort of make it to the news or to the public. Tell us about at least one of those. You don't need to go into specifics, but you must have.
That's a very good question you asked, and I was hoping that you asked this question. When an accident takes place, in this accident, the pilot has paid with his life. In other emergencies, when the pilot is found at fault, he is penalized straight away. But I'm yet to come across an incident where the pilot has handled the emergency very well and saved lives. There has been no reward or award.
Tell us about one of yours.
That's taken for granted that he is supposed to do that. So the company and the aviation authority want me to take this aeroplane from Delhi to London and tell me, dude, don't make a mistake. You make a mistake, we'll hang you. But they never say that you do a good job, we'll reward you.
Very true. I understand what you mean, and it is
fortunately, it's God's grace that I haven't landed up in any very serious situation. But I have lots of friends in Air India who have handled emergencies beautifully. Amazing handling of the situation. But the regulators haven't even come out with a letter of appreciation. This needs to be rectified.
And I know it does happen in the military, but it doesn't happen in civil aviation.
Absolutely.
As someone who covers defense myself, I I hear you, and I know what you're talking about, and I hope
You're
our civil
absolutely right.
aviation
You're absolutely
authorities
right. I'm glad you know about it.
hear about it. No, because on Republic Day, Independence Day, we do hear about heroism in aircraft that is decorated and recognized and felicitated by the president and the government.
Absolutely.
This is something perhaps that should happen to airline pilots
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
a big morale booster.
And I hope that this conversation will be the beginning of that. Some kind of
Hopefully.
action maybe.
Hopefully.
And I promise you here on NDTV, we will take it to the government and see that something like this actually reflects.
Thank you so
Captain Rakesh Rai,
Thanks
has
a
been
lot.
an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for helping us navigate this incredible story. Flight 171's investigation is continuing. It has only just begun, and we will remain on the story and provide you with every single factual update. Thanks for watching.